So, the previous session, we'd fought all those burning skeletons in the freaky weirdo ghost sawmill. And then after the fight was over, we were in pretty bad shape. We used up most of our healing potions and dailies and stuff. Cricket was particularly bad off. Only have the one at will.
And if you recall, she'd lost most of her memories too.
Yeah.
And she just was like, oh yeah.
She was just agreeing with whatever anyone said at any time. It was so unlike her.
Now after resting, you didn't get everything back.
No, I had to make a roll, and what was it, a wisdom check or something?
Yeah, it was a hard wisdom check too.
Yeah.
And failed.
Yeah.
But they rested. But Serendipity did agree to help.
Gold Strider more.
Yes, did agree to help Cricket by doing like the magical equivalent of nursing her. So she made an Arcana check to you know.
She was so
tweak with her mind,
though, because in Cricket's current state, Cricket didn't remember that Serendipity wasn't a full member and Gold Strider more wasn't a full member of the party, and so she was sort of like, I kind of like her this way, you know.
But Serendipity did decide to help her.
Yeah.
And she helped Cricket back into a state where she instead of only having one at will, she had everything but her best daily. So she wasn't like fully better, but she was on the road to recovery. And she remembered almost everything. Her memories were returned. So at least that was good. And they woke up in the nice forest. And I forgot to mention last time that it's it's the cold jungle. That's the forest they're in. There's an area of the world where there's the climate is like Edmonton, but there's a jungle that lives there, and it's inexplicable. It just does.
How did they get there? I thought they were heading the other direction.
The cold jungle is just that's the forest on the east side of the rift. It's just that's where the shifters live.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird because it's
on the west side for some reason.
It's sort of a boreal forest except it's tropical. Magic. But anyway,
it's much like the forest in the desert.
Yes.
It's its counterpart.
The same awesome person made those during world building. Yeah. So anyway, so they slept in the cold jungle. Except it's summer, so it wasn't that cold. But you know. What was the first thing you guys did? I think
they fled the town.
We were outside. We sort of went off into the woods a bit, and we're like, yeah, let's not go near anything, and let's rest somewhere that's not near anything because everything is horrible. And then after we rested, we were like, okay, now let's see if there's any town left. And we swung by did we go right by the sawmill again to see what was up there?
I think, yeah, you went to the sawmill, and it was just how it was before, a burned out ruin with big trees growing in it.
Yeah, 40-year-old saplings.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was then or later, but eventually Hank made this really great nature roll, and he figured out the trees were about 40 years old that were growing in the ruins. And they headed back to the town to where to Mrs. Butler's house, where Brooke was, where they'd left Brooke. They couldn't find any sign of the town. It's just jungle and undergrowth, and it's just forest. But they searched around and searched, and they found Aurora had given Brooke a diary and told her to write what she remembered in it every day to help her remember. And they found the diary just laying there on the ground. They opened it up, and there was only 2 entries. The first entry was something about Aurora asked me to write about how I went searching for them because my dad was missing, and I used to live at such and such a place. And then the next entry was I don't know what the first entry was about, but I sure hate living in this old house all by myself. And then that was it. And the book is just sitting there.
So, yeah.
So is there anything left of the village?
There were a few ancient traces, 40-year-old traces of, there used to be a building here, or this building was never finished, and 40 years ago. Basically, 40 years ago, either the village never existed or was just a few traces that were abandoned 40 years ago. And that's when the sawmill burned down. So, yeah, we're like, okay. We went hunting for Aurora's cat as well.
Because the cat had been left at Mrs. Butler's house.
Yeah.
And they found the cat laying against a tree, sort of not in a very good state and flickering at about 20% transparency.
Oh.
So they were very concerned about the cat.
Yeah.
Right.
They did what they...
Parsnip, right?
Yeah.
We did eventually get Parsnip back online.
No, I don't know. It's a weird misconception. Robin thought that too, but
What was the thing?
so
The cat's still flickering?
the cat is still very sick and flickering. The cat did not get worse, but it did not get better over time.
I guess it's not making its wisdom checks very well.
And Serendipity did not offer to help heal the cat.
So it's all Serendipity's fault, then Gold Strider Malora.
Well, Hank made it clear that he wasn't too sad about the fate of the cat either. But
but Hank doesn't have the Arcana. I guess actually Cricket has Arcana. Cricket should be trying to...
And I mean, Croesus and Aurora will be heartbroken if the cat dies.
Yeah. Okay, in that case, definitely Cricket's going to be trying to fix up the cat.
Yeah, we actually forgot to do some of the rolls later on for the cat, so I don't know what the state of the cat is, but, well, whatever, the cat's sick.
The cat's in a state of both being indeterminate. Yeah.
So...
Schrodinger's.
I was just going to say, who owned this cat?
And so...
Some Warforged.
Yeah.
The interesting thing...
Have you put it in a box yet?
I don't want to give away what they figured out, but I will say that at this point I expected them to give up and leave and have this giant mystery.
Yeah.
But that's not what they did. No, they found out about 10 times more than I expected them to figure out about what was happening here.
Well, we busted out object reading. Which is a ritual that lets you basically look into an object's history and see an image from its past. And so we were taking planks of wood from the ruins and looking at when was the last time you were touched by human hands or whatever like that.
Yeah, the first one I think was the book journal.
Yeah.
And it was really weird for me to try to figure out what...
Yeah, we were getting a lot of very strange results from object reading.
Yeah, they took the journal and they asked... Yes, it was... Oops. Show me... Because you can say, show me the last time this was touched by a person.
Yeah.
And so they got an image of Aurora in the clearing they were in, where the journal was, hovering in midair and setting the journal on a surface that didn't exist. However, the image was very fuzzy, and it wasn't exactly clear why it was fuzzy. And Serendipity is the only one who could see this image, made an Arcana check to try to figure it out and failed. So they got this weird fuzzy image of Aurora hovering in midair, putting the journal on a surface that didn't exist when they asked that.
Yeah.
Which didn't make sense because clearly Brooke would be the last person to touch the journal because she wrote in it after Aurora gave it to her.
And it was hilarious because basically Serendipity, Van Gold Strider Malora, was having to make Arcana checks to get these visions and then perception checks to see what was happening in the visions and see all the weird details and stuff. And she was just completely flubbing her perception checks. And she was the only one who had the visions, so she was the only one that could make the perception checks. It was hilarious. Shannon was getting so frustrated.
Although that is one mitigating factor of that ritual, is that typically the person who cast it is probably not so good at perception.
But Shannon's actually not that bad, or Serendipity Van Gold Strider Malora, is not that bad at perception. I don't know if Shannon is. It was all just really terrible rolls. It just kept working out that way.
I remember all the visions because they're kind of quite interesting because it sort of helped piece things together.
Yeah.
The next one with the book was... Do you remember what it was? Because she got 3 questions with the book.
Yeah.
What is your favorite color?
I think one of them was just show us yesterday or something. Was it with the book or was that with one of the...
That was a different thing.
That was a different thing, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, there were a lot of visions. I'm trying to remember what
Show me the last time it was written in, and it was blackness, which is what you usually get when the question doesn't make sense.
Right.
But there was some kind of faint, weird image she couldn't make out in the blackness that was a bit different. But then she failed her Arcana check and couldn't tell what it was.
So we were like, okay, there's some sort of information content in these visions that we're not quite getting that might explain what's going on.
To get
So we started looking around for more clues and using object reading on stuff because there really wasn't much in the way of clues now. What was the next thing we did?
There was a third question for the book, but I don't remember what. I think she asked the same one again and failed again.
Yeah, we retried the blackness one. I remember that. Then after that, we went to
the mill.
We went straight to the mill from there.
Well, there was a lot of searching around for like
Yeah.
ruins and stuff, and you know Hank found a lot of ruins, and there was the old place. Do you remember there was the place that had become ruins earlier that was a half-built
Yeah.
place, and it was along the road, and travelers have been using it like with like lean-tos and stuff. So it was like obviously like a little stopover place where people use.
I remember that.
But that was about it.
Yeah, so we went back to the mill then. And did we go straight to the doorknob? I think we...
Basically, figured out what to do, dug around, found a doorknob in the ruins, and did object reading on that.
Yeah. And we asked the doorknob, show us the last time you were touched by human hands or whatever. And so we see...
Weren't you in a Mongol camp?
No, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is a town.
Oh, right.
The sawmill
It's a Mongol town.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it? I was gonna say, isn't it a Mongol town?
Yeah. Well, when I say by human hands, I mean by people.
No wonder you weren't buying anything.
Yeah.
I think I remember.
Yeah.
I think I know what the campaign is called. Tales of Niceness and Naivete.
So, when was the last time you were touched? And we got a vision. We saw the sawmill was catching fire, and the people inside the sawmill were frantically trying to pull the door open and get out, and it didn't seem to be doing that. So the people inside seemed to be trapped, and the sawmill was on fire. And then what was the other layer of that vision?
There was a weird after image, and she was able to get a hold of it this time and see the second image, which was just a guy closing the door, holding keys as if he's going to lock the door.
Right. Like a normal end of day type thing.
Yeah.
Medium the whole time.
And the sawmill wasn't on fire in that one.
Yeah, just
Yeah, it's not a warehouse.
So we're like, okay, and in both cases, it's kind of funny. In the case of the everything's on fire, people trying to get out, the vision was on the inside of the door. It was inside the sawmill. In the case of the one where it was just a guy locking up, it was on the outside. And so we were curious about what was going on the other side of the door in both situations. So we asked basically the same question, but the other side of the door.
yeah.
Since it's a doorknob, it goes through the door. It's got both things. And so then we got another double vision. And for the one where the guy was just locking the door like normal, the inside of the sawmill was just normal, empty, closed down type thing. But the outside, when the people were struggling to get out and things on fire, this was very interesting. This is, I believe, one we saw the guys.
Yeah.
Yes, we saw there was like fireballs raining from the sky, and there were these black smoky tendrils everywhere. And there was this guy with a staff who was like casting spells, and these black smoky tendrils were around him as well, and they all led off to this one spot in the woods. So the sawmill was like nuked by wizards with all these weird spells and stuff.
Well, you could actually, and I think in that vision, let me think for a second.
I think those were all.
Yes,
the
that's all you saw there. Yeah.
That was all the
You've got
major
to make a
features.
mental note of what you reveal and
Yeah.
not reveal.
And I need to take a little inventory of my players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you would have saw a unicorn. What? Oh shit. No unicorn.
And
So we're like, okay, interesting. Let's go to the spot where those smoky tendrils seem to be coming from.
do you remember what the third question was? I think she failed the Arcana check on one of them and re-asked
Yeah.
it. Maybe.
Could be. I think that was all the
That's
information we
what
got
it
out
was,
of the
yeah.
doorknob. Now I'm trying to remember. Did we ask anything? I think we
Was
asked.
it Cam?
I think we asked for like just a chronological one, like show us yesterday or something like that. Oh yes, that's right, because we were fighting the skeletons there yesterday. We wanted to see show us a vision from yesterday.
At such and such a time.
Such and such a time. And in that case, we saw, was it just a single image?
Yeah, you failed on the second one.
No, I think it was.
Yeah, I'm sure you only saw. Oh no, there was 2 images.
There was 2.
But you didn't get to see the second one. It was both correct.
So we saw the party fighting invisible foes, essentially. We didn't see the skeletons. We just saw the party going through the motions of fighting. And I think the sawmill was a ruin.
The sawmill was a ruin. The party, it was like a scene from the fight, except the party was fighting nothing.
Yeah.
And they couldn't see the second image,
Yeah.
which is actually really interesting.
Will you tell me that later?
Maybe we should have
Sure, I'll tell you that later.
We should keep the doorknob.
Wait, they were fighting. They were fighting like in the what happened yesterday. They were fighting nothing.
Yeah, the scene was exactly the same, except there were no skeletons. They were just fighting nothing.
My prediction?
And then the interesting thing was that there was also a black image.
There was a second image, but they didn't get to see it.
Okay.
Here's
And the
my
second image was interesting, but I can't tell you what it is.
here's my prediction of what the second image is. It's a bunch of sawmill workers being attacked by a flaming skeleton of a satyr and a star, etc. Anyway, no, I don't think so. I don't know. So we go to investigate where those tendrils came from, the smoky tendrils, and we find the remains of a camp.
It's been fairly well hidden, but Hank sniffs it out.
Yeah.
He finds, quite literally, he finds where people have been laying down, and they find a stump where they've hidden their fire, their garbage, and their poop.
Yeah, the poop came in very
Yes,
handy.
it was kind of interesting, because Hank was like, he specifically asked, does it smell like, like mongrels or whatever, and is it mongrel poop? And that was weird, because I didn't expect that question. And I had to say, well, they do smell like mongrels, which is what was in the vision. But their poop isn't mongrel poop. It's like some kind of, either they're really sick or it wasn't mongrel poop. You're pretty sure of this, because Hank is a poop expert.
They look like mongrels.
I'm gonna grab this while you're waiting for the rain.
Well,
Sure.
Their
yeah,
poop doesn't smell like mongrels.
yes.
Yeah.
So either they're not mongrels or they were very sick.
This shit smells funny.
Precisely.
So they dug
Yes.
around in that pile.
Yep. Serendipity, but we tried to get Serendipity Van Goldstar and Malore to do object reading on the poop,
Tales of poop.
and she absolutely refused. She was like, "I'm not touching it." So we found a chicken bone,
Read it.
and did object reading on the chicken bone.
We took divinations from the chicken.
And that turned out to be extremely handy. So first we asked it, when were you eaten? Show us an image of you being eaten. And so we see this camp of 10 guys. And they're just, they're camping. They're having a meal. And
they're sort of celebrating. They're like in a celebratory mood.
yeah. And so we try and figure out from their clothing, like, when is this? Who are they? Where are they from? All that kind of stuff. And
Which is actually a reasonable thing, because Serendipity is a gnome.
they're all
Gnomes
into
are totally
fashion
into
and stuff. So we sort of figure, based on their appearance, that they're all wizards. But we can't figure out, what era their wizard robes were fashionable in. We don't know whether this is a 40-year-old thing or not.
Serendipity totally failed her perception.
Yep.
She had a chance of figuring that out, because she was totally into fashion, but
Yeah. But
just-
perception after perception was failing for her. It was horrible. So anyway, and anything else from that? I don't think we figured anything else from that.
there was a second image, but it was only the background that was blurred. So in the image that was there, it was them. It was them.
Right.
Having
their celebratory thing.
Yeah, and the second image in the background was a mill that was, where the mill was fading out, but in the primary image it wasn't there.
No. So then we asked the chicken bone, when were you purchased, I think. by when did you come into possession of these people? And we got an image of a marketplace where this guy is buying the chicken from some chicken salesman lady person.
Yeah, this 40-year-old lady with a wart on her nose.
Yeah. Typical peasant that would be selling chickens in a marketplace. And we don't recognize her. We don't recognize the marketplace, but it's useful information. We've got a trail. And was there a third question?
There was. I'm trying to remember what it was because you were debating a long time, and you finally asked something that would actually be useful.
For once, debate was useful.
When were you buried? That's when it was. And they got a vision of, someone burying all this stuff under a stump. But the interesting thing is, in addition to the 10 wizards, there were 6 peasants with them. Just milling about breaking camp.
Right, that's when we found that out. So we're starting to sort of get a bit of an idea of what's happened here. The theory we sort of gelled around is that these 10 wizards, for reasons we don't know yet, these wizards went back in time 40 years and destroyed the sawmill, thus destroying the economic foundations of the town and causing it
Sorry, go ahead.
never be built.
I just remembered a set of object readings that we didn't mention.
I knew there was one missing.
Because we went to the ruins of Mrs. Butler's...
Right.
Oh no, that was another question at Mrs. Butler's house. That was the third question, because it was...
Yeah.
Or it was something about...
Oh, right, the one where we see who was the last person to leave the house or something like that.
Yes,
And one we see old Mrs. Butler, and her elderly husband or whatever, having some sort of happy reunion thing. And the other one was young Mrs. Butler, all weepy and stuff, locking up the house.
Yeah, it's basically like a 40-year-old woman and a 20-year-old woman who looks a lot like Mrs. Butler.
Yeah.
Crying and leaving the house in a carriage.
And one of those was from the timeline where everything was great and fine and awesome and stuff. Her husband's alive and there and all that sort of stuff. And the other is when the mill got burned down 40 years ago and the town fails. And she leaves. So yeah, that was what we figured out, is that there's these 2 timelines. And that's why we kept getting double images. One image was from one timeline, the other was from the other timeline. And those weren't ghosts, those were sort of people that were phasing between the 2 timelines. They were going from one to the other.
And you killed them.
We killed a dog. We haven't killed any, well, all those skeletons too, maybe, but I'm not really sure what's up with those.
Have you tried a reverse polarity tachyon pulse yet?
No, we haven't tried that. We decided to try running away, actually. Because, well, I was going to look around for a small blue shed with a lantern on the roof. But I couldn't find one of those. Anyway. So, we sort of figured that we now knew the basics of what happened here. We don't know why. We don't know who these wizards are, how they did this, why they did this, anything like that. But it's still a remarkable bit of we actually know what the heck happened here and why everything was so freaky weird.
Contrary to my plan.
Object reading ruins everything.
And they also determined, using tracking, that the 10 wizards had come up from the south through the forest. They left their clearing to the west, which went to the road, and went south on the road.
Yeah.
So they were going south, which is ahead of the party.
Yeah. And that's the direction we were heading anyway. So we carry on to the next town.
So you're pretty sure these wizards are alive right now?
And they seem to be. The traces they've left in this timeline are in the current day.
If that were you, I wouldn't mess with them. They have time travel.
Well, it's quite interesting. I I've been speculating about whether we're from the first timeline or the second, whether we even existed in the first timeline, or what. You know, it's weird. Who knows?
Wibbly wobbly, tiny.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. So, we headed on to the next town, which we were going to go to anyway, before we got sidetracked with that whole thing. And we get there, and we discover, I think pretty quick and easy, that the marketplace here is the marketplace that we saw the chicken being bought at. We asked the chicken lady about those wizards, and I think she did remember them, but she didn't remember much about them.
She rememred them. She's like,
Yeah, I was like, I
guy bought
sold a
chicken.
bunch of chickens and stuff. So that happened in the timeline we're in right now.
Well, it was interesting because she sold them. She asked how many. I don't know how many chickens per person there are. So I was just like, well, they bought a certain number of chickens a few days ago, and then yesterday they came through and bought twice as many chickens, which is my full inventory. Mm-hmm. She actually said the number of chickens, but I didn't know what that number was. So some number of chickens.
This raises many interesting questions about the physics of time travel, of course.
Well, it clearly makes them hungry. Twice as hungry.
Like 15.
It means that this chicken salesman was in the same timeline as the wizards, both coming and going, which is kind of odd. Yeah.
Wait, so if you pass that.
We also discovered. Oh yes, Hank. He grew up in a tribe of shifters, somewhat near this area.
Right.
And so we discovered that he now had two sets of memories regarding the lumber supply, the local lumber supply.
Oh.
In one set of memories, he remembers that there was, nicely hewn planks of wood that his tribe occasionally purchased for use in various planky type applications. And in the other, he also remembers that, we just cut down trees and stuff and use those.
And the primary memory was just, we just did everything ourselves. But then, now that you mention it, wait a minute, no we didn't.
Yeah.
We bought, when we needed fine lumber, we bought it. But, no, what? So.
Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
These wizards that bought chickens, you said was it their way back that they bought twice as much?
Yeah.
So they're twice as far away as the village.
Or they had more people. Because we know they picked up those 6 peasants. Well, we think they picked up those 6 peasants.
Did you recognize them from the town?
No.
And then specifically checked.
Yeah.
Of course,
Now-
Serendipity's perception
Van Goldstrutter Malore.
continued to be terrible, so I think that one was pretty, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, they didn't recognize anyone from the town.
So we're now in this town, and we're sort of on the trail of this group of marauding, time-traveling, lumber mill burning wizards. But we're also on another trail.
Wizards weren't robots.
We're also robots don't poop.
Or eat chicken.
So we're also on the trail of the alleged Butcher of Breckenridge, if you recall. And so we do a little bit of checking around for that as well. Was it this town or was it the next town?
That was the next town,
This
but
is the
that
next
reminds
town.
me, in this town, you asked around, or Aurora asked around and
Yeah.
found someone who knew about the mill, right? It's like, so you know about the mill? And they
Oh,
found
yeah,
this old
that's right.
timer
Forgot
who
about
was like, oh yeah, it's a terrible thing. 40 years ago, it burned down, and all the workers were trapped inside, and they all burned to death. It was a terrible thing. And, of course, the town shut down. No one ever lived there ever since, sort of thing. And they asked, is anyone who, left there live around here? And he pointed them in the direction
right.
of Mrs. James, who they found, knocked on her door, and, of course, Mrs. Butler opened the door.
Yeah.
And-
She never married. Because, well, at least not that guy.
Yeah. So she, hello, dearie. Can I help you? And Aurora makes this epic diplomacy about we're collecting stories from the town of Milbergen when they had the accident, and she wasn't super keen on talking about it because it's a painful memory. But Aurora is nice, so.
At least we weren't like, you're that Mrs. Butler from the other timeline.
So she invited them in for tea and scones. Yeah, again, this time everyone ate the tea scones.
This time it should have been poisoned. It would
Yeah.
have been awesome.
Great.
It's like if she didn't live in Millburg, she grew up to be a psychopathic mass murderer.
No, the husband was the one who taught her how to make it.
And taught her not to be a psychopathic mass murderer.
But she didn't add too much they didn't know. Like, she just described how
Yeah.
she moved there with her parents. Her father died in the mill that day, and so they didn't have really any money or prospects, so they left town and lived with relatives. And there were some nice people in this town who took them in, and that's where they ended up staying.
I've got all these crazy theories going on right now.
Well, I kept trying to figure out what this mill's produce was used for. Was it involved in the war effort or anything like that? You know, I was like, what are they trying to butterfly by burning down this mill? But I couldn't find anything of particular note in that regard. Yeah.
Well,
That
it
was-
seemed quite, in fact, the opposite. Like, there didn't seem to be any massive
Yeah.
impact. At least, of course, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. It's like, let's see, what's different from what we remember?
Still, when Hank
Yeah.
thought about it, he could remember the two memories of the lumber.
Yeah, but that seemed to be it pretty much. And none of the rest of us are from this area, so
We go through your memories one by one.
yeah.
So,
I mean, obviously, if they somehow prevent the war or something, then cricket will just wink out and stuff like that. That would probably be noticeable. Not to cricket, of
You're
course,
not
but-
looking quite whole.
Yeah.
Water, please.
but, I mean,
Kiss.
What's that?
If they don't kiss, brothers and sisters, it won't happen. Get up there, Marty.
So, the next town is where we're on the trail now.
and it was one on the list
Yeah.
of the butcher's list of towns he had
The
to cross
alleged
off.
butcher,
It's called Patu Water,
Patuwater.
The butcher was from town.
which,
Now, John had like this big explanation for why the town was called Patuwater.
well, and whenever anyone like sort of scoffed at the name, the townsfolk were, like, gave them a stink eye and were annoyed.
Yeah.
Everyone mocked their
So
town name.
he was expecting us to investigate, but nope,
He didn't care.
no. We're like, we don't care why this town is called Patuwater.
It was called Patu Water because
We don't care.
Patu is this type of freshwater shrimp that lives in the ponds or in and around the town, and they fish for freshwater shrimp there.
We don't care. This is like
makes
the.
sense.
And they get really offended if you make fun of their name.
Yeah.
This is just another case of NPCs trying to tell us stuff. We're wise to that now.
Say, you want to know why our town's called this?
Anyway.
Wild. Listen.
Oh,
And I was like, when they left and didn't ask, I was like, well, I guess you'll never know. And they're like,
Like,
yeah,
we
okay,
don't-
I don't care.
guess that's the case. Yeah. So anyway, we. So this is a town on the alleged butcher of Brackenridge's list of towns of interest. So we sort of ask around. Hey, has this guy been through here? Do you know anything about that? And did they mention up front that the mayor?
Someone asked, is anything weird going on? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, the mayor was found dead this morning.
Yeah, that's kind of
So-
weird. So we went to investigate the mayor's place. We used like a diplomacy check, and we're like, yeah, we're official busybodies. We're here to.
Well, and they were just, they would have, like, hired you. So you're
Yeah.
like, can we please investigate? And they're like, yes. But you also, they mentioned that, so this old guy had come into town
Yeah.
two nights ago.
Hung out with the
stayed
mayor
the
for a
night.
bit, then moved on.
Then the next day, nothing happened. Then
Yeah.
the next morning, the mayor was found dead in his bed.
Yeah.
And someone claimed they saw the old guy leaving the middle day, and someone else claims they saw the mayor out in his garden on the middle day. But like both of those are just like someone ran down the street,
Yeah.
observant. So it's not clear. But yeah,
So we go to investigate the mayor's house, and he'd been murdered in his sleep. Essentially, his throat was slit while he was in bed. So we go to his bedroom, and we start searching. Well, we search the house, and we find hidden under a floorboard some old documents and medals and stuff that indicated that this guy was also in the Empire of Endless Flowers military back during the war. He had a medal for valor for saving a whole lot of... he risked himself to save a whole lot of lives while he had no pain slaves. So it was an actual risk. And so everyone was like, oh, he's a horrible Nazi. And I'm like, no, he's a conscientious objector who had no pain slaves and risked his life to save other people. He was like Gandhi. He was Gandhi and Mother Teresa and Florence Nightingale all rolled up into one, and someone murdered him. And they're all like, oh, it must have been the Butcher of Breckenridge then, because he's a horrible person too. And I'm like, no, he's a legend. Anyway, we did object reading, and saw the murderer sneak into the bedroom, or sneaking in. It's still images, so we don't see him actually sneaking in, but he's like dressed in black, assassin robe garb type stuff. And I can't remember, did we actually manage to see his... Oh yes, that's right, we could only see his eyes. But it's Serendipity Van Goldstrider Malore who's seeing the vision, and she's a gnome, and gnomes only ever see people's eyes, so they're really good at recognizing people that you can only see the eyes of. And so she was like, oh yeah, I know him. He's Henry, that one of the two guys that was trying to kill the alleged Butcher of Brackenridge and that we had let go. And he's...
there was the mage and the rogue. And
this is the rogue. And so, this is... We let this guy go, and he now has murdered this helpless retired war hero. And so Cricket is really cross with the party now.
Wow.
She won't say that out loud, of course.
They were hunting the Butcher of Brackenridge, and this guy was a soldier, so they might have...
Well, this guy is some kind of guy hiding out from war.
Yeah.
Whether he's a war hero or not remains to be seen. All we know is that he has a number of medals and one for extraordinary bravery and risking his life when he had no pain slaves. It doesn't say whether he it doesn't say that he didn't. It doesn't
Ever
say
have.
Yes. Either all his pain slaves were dead, or he never had them,
or he got severed.
Yeah. So we are now basically pursuing 3 separate groups of murderers.
But it seems like detective work in that world is super easy. You just have to fill up.
Well, in this case, it would have been tricky if it wasn't for the fact that Serendipity Van Goldstrider Maloro is really good at recognizing people by their eyes.
Yeah, but if you find the guy, you just walk around town, if the murderer was in town, and just do object reading on each person and be like, where were you last night? Still in it.
Object reading costs a lot.
Oh.
It's
it's
100
people, right?
No.
Yeah. You read their clothing or something, but if you want to commit a murder, you have to get rid of all the witnesses, which includes your clothing.
Yeah.
So,
So we'll coordinate it.
Yeah.
They're sure
guy walking around.
a whole move gang.
So, there's a band of time-traveling wizards that killed a town 40 years ago yesterday. There's Henry, who killed this heroic, brave, and noble retired war hero.
And then there's a scared old man running for his life.
Yeah, there's a scared old man who may or may not be involved in some way in a horrible atrocity that happened a long time ago. So we decide, and they're all 1 or 2 days ahead of us.
Everyone's commenting on this ball of guys one day ahead of them on the road.
Yeah.
Although
Aurora said, was it Aurora that I likened it to a dung beetle or something like that?
It's a dung beetle of bad murderers. Although, to be fair, I didn't expect them to know anything about those 10 wizards. That was not... They were not supposed to know about them.
How many years ago was the Battle of Brackenridge?
Battle of Brackenridge.
Wasn't it 20 or something? Or 15,
it was right around the end of the war.
Yeah.
It wasn't it was after the Ephod lost the war and they were retreating. And the Butcher of Brackenridge had a bunch of he was just a good guy at the time. Had a bunch of people he was taking back to become pain slaves, and it became apparent their position was going to be taken, and he was going to lose, and they were going to be free. So he ordered them all killed, and that's why he's the Butcher of Brackenridge, because it was at Brackenridge they were all killed.
So we decide that, okay, they're like a day or two ahead of us. If we can keep this up, by the time we get to Greybridge, there's going to be like 50 murderers ahead of us or something. At Greybridge, it's going to be a devastated wasteland. So we...
We're not going to win community. That's for sure.
So we do like a forced march through the night. Hurry up and let's catch up with these guys, because they don't even know that we're following them, so it shouldn't be that hard. And so that's sort of where the session ended, after we'd done this forced march, thing. And we all did endurance checks to see how wiped out we were. And everyone did fine except Cricket completely flubbed hers. So she's just like, ah. And that's where the session ended, with us getting to the next town. Is the next town one of the ones that was marked on the list?
It was.
Okay.
But we didn't mention it. We didn't ask at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I had that in mind, so maybe I thought I'd add it.
Yeah, so theoretically, based on everyone's schedule, when people have been places, they got there in the morning. They arrive in the town in the morning, like pre-dawn.
Yeah.
And theoretically, both those 10 wizards plus and the alleged butcher should be sleeping in this town. If
The butcher or Henry?
Or Henry.
Because I would have thought that the alleged butcher of Brackenridge would be further
Takes
ahead.
that slip. Dun, dun, dun.
No, he keeps calling the butcher of Brackenridge. I keep correcting him, the alleged butcher of Brackenridge.
the morning you... Oh, no, you didn't get there in the morning. You got there in the evening. That's right. Okay. Maybe one more day.
Can you keep a timeline in a book somewhere on the computer?
It kind of gets confusing because everyone's traveling and it's like how many days ahead were they on the road? Okay, yes, you're right. It would be Henry who would be there.
Well, we know that in all probability the alleged butcher is leading the pack. Because he would be the only one that really knows that people are chasing him, because he had to flee the previous town.
Henry's the closest to you guys, I think.
Well, I don't know. Those time-traveling wizards, it's hard to say where they are in all of this.
I mean, they can time travel.
Yeah, and, well, assuming they haven't, like, gone 1,000 years in the future and we're, like, way behind them now.
The tendrils. I think the tendrils are key there, where they projected those into the pen.
It's unclear.
I think it's all about parsnip.
Well,
that was the key.
we are...
Is that the cat?
Yeah, it's the cat.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the wizards, I'm pretty sure, don't know that anyone's on their tail, because who would be? It's that statute of limitations is up. You know, it's.
I don't know. You guys have been asking questions. Maybe they've got spies in each town.
Got time spies.
I don't know. Why would they set them up? I mean, they don't think anyone's chasing.
I think it's all a Warforged plot.
I'm sure.
They got kicked off.
I'm sure they're taking it easy and not really know that we're on their
Just make sure
trail.
you don't let them know where you used to live.
It's possible. It's possible that that came up as like, what if they try and kill us when we're young? And I was like,
where were you raised? Nowhere near.
Cricket was raised in the Temple of Freedom. That's like one of the most heavily defended, fortresses. Good luck with that. And then she realized, what if they were the ones that wiped out the previous owners, Cricket's previous owners? Because that's sort of an unsolved loose end there.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
You should make that.
Well, to me, this seems all very Warforged-y.
Well, it does, except that they poop.
Well,
Again, it comes back to
we established that very, very clear. That was very important.
but I think they may have arranged it.
We should
somehow.
probably put that in a bottle or something. And
They must have clearly arranged it, because they're basically the only people that we know of on.
But they don't have time travel. They have old prophecy left over.
I don't know.
Very
They found some time travelers.
Yeah, we never put any time travel in world building, so who knows what's going on
Well,
with this.
that's true,
This is de novo.
It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. After the campaign's over, we'll have to do world building to figure out.
Future building.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where they were.
Where in the timeline is Carmen San Diego?
Yeah.
I played that game. It was hard.
Yeah. So hopefully we're going to short circuit this murder katamari that we've got by running ahead and actually catching up to someone. Maybe pop this quest off the stack or two.
Although I find it kind of interesting that the party's like, yeah, let's force march and catch up with those 10 wizards who apparently have some, like, at least time travel type ability to, like, you know,
throw
it's like,
fireballs.
Yeah, and like burn down a whole mill. It's like,
Well, you know,
The past.
let's
maybe-
take them on, baby.
maybe we can catch the time travelers by surprise. Yeah.
You should make the wizards, when they meet them, say, we've been expecting you.
Well, I don't know if we're necessarily
We're gonna make a
gonna
mental note to
fight
remember
them.
to
I
No,
mean,
I know, I just-
they did a horrible thing, but we don't know why. But definitely, if nothing
Apparently that
else,
was all planned.
if nothing else, Henry's a dirty, lousy murderer. If Cricket got a vote, she doesn't, but if she did, then she would be totally like, yeah, we got to stop Henry because he's just running around murdering people.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and to be just to give the full perspective, like the other party members are not like, oh, this guy's totally a war hero. They're assuming he's probably a war criminal. That's why
Henry stabbed him.
There's the part of the party who's like undecided. Then there's like Hank who's like, yeah, kill those war criminals. And then there's Cricket who's like, yes, all they ever do is like ford rivers to catch babies to save them from burning
If
orphanages.
the other party members wanted their opinion presented in these recordings, they should come to lunch with us more often.
They wanted me to touch poop. The chicken bone was bad enough. Oh, I know that I won't have to get dirty from it, but the thought of dirt, it stains. And also, I keep having to do these rituals, and I see the most horrible things: people dying and being trapped and dying, and being murdered in their sleep. But at least we have some very vague idea of what happened in this town. Very vague idea.
Dear Diary, I'm so glad that we stayed a little bit longer in that town to try to figure out what was happening. You know, we just persevered. We just kept looking and looking until we could figure it out. And I feel like we really have an idea of what's going on. But to be honest, I'm deeply concerned. If someone has the power to go into the past and alter the present, then what does that mean for our future? Like, they could destroy anything in such a manner. It's deeply distressing. We need to find them quickly. But don't tell the other party members. Diary? I hope no one reads this. But I'm concerned if we come across 16 mages or 10 mages and 6 peasants or whatever it was, we might not be able to succeed in combat against them. I'm hoping that they will be reasonable people and we can talk about this and, come to a consensus about the appropriate way to respond to this problem. But even if they do realize that what they did was wrong, there's no guarantee there's any way to prevent it. Like, can we go back and put the mill back? Will Brooke ever be alive again? Or for the first time? Anyway, I can't help but feeling like we failed her somehow. Well, more than somehow. And I wish I knew what we could do to help. I'm glad we didn't give up and just walk away. I feel like I urged Cricket to tell the party to do the right thing, and she did, and I'm really proud of her. She's a great leader.
You know what's really confusing? I have these conflicting memories that contradict each other about lumber. I recall having this mill deliver wood to my village, but do I? Because I also heard stories about this mill burning down. Might not have even been the same thing. I don't know. I was just a kid at the time, but... And why would we get lumber anyway? We have our trees. We cut them down. But I kind of remember that. I don't even know. It's very strange. I don't know. Maybe we'll get this all figured out, but it's very confusing.
There are all these places where we just walk by them, but people used to call it home. They used to live here, but it's just an empty forest now. It really bothers me, because it was on fire, and they wanted to get out. We kept trying to get out because we had to go back. We had to get out, but they knew where we were going, and it's all on fire, and we're beating on the door, and we can't. We have to get out, but I keep climbing it, and it's vanishing from my hands. I beating in my hands, and they're gone. They're all just fading away, and the dreams are gone. All I can't even. I don't. We gotta get out. We gotta get out. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, I'm so tired. I haven't walked this hard since I first fled the Empire. Oh, and I'm somewhat disturbed. We're seemingly pursuing an ever-growing mass of murderers and vigilantes with overlapping schemes that we still don't really understand. There's a group of wizards who appear to have murdered a bunch of people in a sawmill 40 years ago yesterday. And there's the alleged butcher of Brackenridge that we don't actually know whether he's the butcher of Brackenridge that we're following. And then in this most recent town, Patoowater, the alleged butcher of Brackenridge stopped off and talked with the mayor, who turned out to be an old war hero from the Eve times, who heroically saved the lives of soldiers in the field of battle. And that Henry fellow from Valneva, who had been following the alleged butcher of Brackenridge, murdered him in his sleep. So now, either we let the butcher of Brackenridge go, and thus unleashed a murderer on the world, or we let Henry go, and thus unleashed a murderer on the world, or something. I don't know what we're going to do when we catch up with these people. For once, Croesus's interpretation seems the most reasonable.